There's a right way of doing that you have to negotiate with your wife. Maybe she rushes to the door and meets you with all the problems of the day. Okay, that's probably not a great strategy, because you're already up to here, you're tired. So is she, likely, from whatever she was doing. Maybe she was at work too. You can't meet each other when you're both tired every single day for the rest of your life with nothing but a ball of problems. Partly because if you do that 50 times, you're going to view the person as just a bunch of snakes that are coming at you. That's not good. Even if the problems that are being pointed to are real. You might think, okay, so you come home after work. What would be the best way for that to unfold? And you have to negotiate that. And I would say, let's parameterize that a bit. You're probably hungry. Well, you don't want to talk to someone. This is another great rule. Don't talk to your partner about something complicated when they're hungry. It's not going to work. So maybe you come home, you have something to eat, you kick off your shoes, maybe you take 10 minutes for yourself, and then you can talk. But you want to get that right. Or maybe you come home, you meet each other at the door, she gives you a hug, you have something to eat, you relax for a minute, maybe you have a shower, but then you've already negotiated about when you're going to have a conversation and you're going to be prepared for it. Now, people do this in the business. You don't just randomly discuss a bunch of problems at your business if it's running reasonably well. You have a meeting, it's parameterized. You kind of have an agenda. You have to do that at home. You have your home is also a small business, and it has to be run like that. And you have to spend 90 minutes, at least 90 minutes a week with your wife, just running the damn business. And I can tell you, if you don't do that, you'll never get to the play, ever. Because maybe you'll be romantically interested in each other and you want to spend some time together, but there's a bunch of problems brewing, and your wife will definitely this will absolutely happen, is that when you're trying to be interested in each other, these things will come into her mind and distract her, and she'll bring them up. And then you'll get pissed off because it's like, well, we're supposed to be having fun at the moment. We're supposed to be attending to each other. Why are you bringing that up? And the answer is, well, we're together and these are problems. We haven't set aside time to deal with them. The reason you should listen to your wife is because if you listen to her enough, she'll tell you what's wrong and what she wants. And then you can fix what's wrong and you can give her what she wants.
In your practice, have you ever encountered those holes in the bedroom, those childhood traumas that you realized at some point when you stared into the patient's eyes, they could never solve?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. A bottomless abyss. Yeah. It's awful. Yeah, I was in situations where, I'd get to the bottom of it, I thought, and then it was like Dantes Inferno, for everyone who is listening, you should read that book. Dantes Inferno is a topography of hell. So underneath every problem is layers of problems, right to the bottom. For Dante, the worst problem was betrayal. Right. And the reason betrayal is the worst problem is, like, if you and I want to have a relationship, we have to trust each other. And betrayal is the violation of the trust upon which relationships are predicated. So it blows apart everything. So the lowest level of hell for Dante, the bottom of hell, was filled with betrayers. And that's right. That's childhood sexual abuse. Like, it's the ultimate betrayal, right? A child sexual predator is someone who takes the role of guardian to be the wolf, right? It's the worst form of betrayal. And so it just devastates children, and because they're actually faced with the problem of malevolence at a very early age. And what the hell? It's like, you're 4 and now you see the bottom of hell. Well, that's trauma. And the way you treat that, by the way, is you walk people through a topography of hell. That's what you do. And you can do that. Well, let's say you were abused when you were a kid. Okay, so what's your problem? Well, your problem is you've seen into the heart of darkness. That's your problem. And just blew you into pieces. Could people really be like that? Is that my father? Right? Is that my uncle? How could he do that? Well, you're gazing into the face of malevolence itself. You have to develop a philosophy of good and evil. It's a religious philosophy, essentially, because a philosophy of good and evil is a religious philosophy. Those are the same thing. You have to develop a philosophy of evil, and then you have to understand how you combat that. And that's very complicated. How do you combat evil? With truth, with love, with beauty. You have to start to embody that. or maybe it's even worse. You're traumatized because you did something like brutal, seriously brutal, and maybe you enjoyed it. That's a very common pathway to post-traumatic stress disorder for people. And post-traumatic stress disorder occurs when you have a very large hole that, gapes large enough to swallow virtually everything that hasn't been fixed or papered over. You do that by finding your way out of hell. And that's what happens in the Inferno too. Dante is guided through hell by Virgil, who's the spirit that guides you through hell. That's a good way of thinking about it. So, and every problem, even the problems your wife brings to you, especially if they repeat, there are levels underneath that. And at the bottom, there's a betrayal, something like that. There's some bit of hell in there somewhere. And sometimes, if you go all the way to the bottom and you solve that bottom problem, you'll solve a whole bunch of peripheral problems. So there's a movie, Apocalypse Now, that's about a journey to the heart of darkness, and that's what the book is about, Joseph Conrad's book. And there's a documentary called Heart of Darkness that describes the making of Apocalypse Now. And the people who made Apocalypse Now, which was a movie about a journey to the heart of darkness, it had an effect on them while they were making the movie. And all of the people that were acting in the movie and directing it, producing it, financing, all went on a journey to the heart of darkness inside. And it virtually killed them. One of them had a heart attack. One of them went completely broke. Like they just had a catastrophe when they were making this movie. They fell into its archetypal clutches. Heart of Darkness is the name of the documentary. It's fascinating.
Have you been on that journey yourself?
Yeah. Sort of, I would say in some ways permanently. When I was 20, something like that, 20, I started studying atrocity, right? And so I've always been interested in the Holocaust, Auschwitz in particular, but it's a very particular interest. Like evil, Nazi Germany, Auschwitz, prison guard who enjoyed his work, right? Because my question was, how could you be an Auschwitz prison guard who enjoyed his work? Now, one answer is, well, you're just like a demon from another planet who's so unlike me that I don't even have to worry about it. And that's a very convenient answer, but it's not true. Many, 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 many of the people, not all, many of the people who were involved in the Nazi atrocities were perfectly ordinary people. They were just like you. And you think, no, I wouldn't do that. It's like, that's not what the evidence suggests. The evidence suggests that the vast majority of people in Nazi Germany went along with it. Now, not all of them were dragged into the abyss itself, but plenty were. And if you think you wouldn't have been one of them, that just means it's highly likely that you would have, because you have no idea what you're capable of. There's a great book about that. It's a terrifying book called Ordinary Men. And it's about the initiation of a police battalion from Germany who went to Poland after the Germans marched into Poland. Now, these were ordinary men. They were policemen, middle-aged, who had grown up before the Nazi propaganda mill got going. Okay, so they weren't indoctrinated Nazis from like the time they were 4. They're just ordinary middle-class guys. Plus, their commander told them in Poland when they were starting to do military work, even though they were civilian policemen, that they could go home, that they didn't have to do this job, and that there would be no repercussions. And in fact, out of the battalion, a number of men right at the beginning said, I'm not doing this, and they went home. The vast majority went along. Now, why? Okay, so now these policemen are in Poland, and they've been told a story, which is that, Germany's at war, and the reason for that is that evil Jews have conspired up a conspiracy, and they've united the Western world against us, and they're a fifth column within the country, and your patriotic duty is to root them out now that we're in Poland, and you're saving the fatherland, and there's going to be dirty work associated with it, and do you really want to leave all that to your compatriots, your companions, your guys? Because like if you and I are together, and someone that we're working for presents us with a dirty job, and I say, well, I'm not doing that, well, then I leave it to you. Mm-hmm. So there's a kind of betrayal that's built into that. Now, the guys that left thought, I don't care, I'm not doing this, but most people didn't. And part of the reason they didn't do it is because they were loyal to their peers. By the end of this, which took months, these guys were taking naked pregnant women out into the middle of fields and shooting them in the back of the head. like, and becoming violently ill because of doing so and tearing themselves into shreds internally, like sick at heart, but doing it. And it's a terrible thing to look at. And I started looking at that like it's 40 years ago now. You know, it was shocking. And so what did I discover? Well, I discovered a lot of things. I discovered that the road to totalitarian hell and atrocity is paved with lies. Like, lies are the pathway to hell, really, like practically and metaphysically. And so one of the things I decided, and this was in 1985, was that I was going to stop lying.
What does that mean practically?
Lies ruin your life.
So you will not accept a white lie? You won't cast...
Well, look, a white lie is better than a black lie. But look, if you're really telling the truth, you're serving truth at every level of analysis simultaneously. That's right. So if my words are landing properly, they're going to be the words that work right now and tomorrow and a week from now and a month from now. And they're going to work for me and they're going to work for you. So a true statement has levels of application. And a white lie is a statement that's true at one level and false at another. Now, you might not be able to, maybe you don't have the wherewithal at that moment to come up with the statement that satisfies all the truth conditions at every level. And so you default to the best you can manage. You know, your wife says, "Do I look fat in this dress?" You know, or maybe she says, "How do I look in this dress?" And you think you don't like that dress. And, you know, the easy thing to do is to say, "I love it, dear, whatever you want." Or, you know, "Of course not." But that's a white lie. But that's not the optimal answer. Like, a better answer to that is, don't ask me questions like that. And then you can have a discussion about it. See, the thing is, I bought a lot of clothes for my wife. I like clothes shopping for my wife. And I tell her how I think she looks. And the advantage to that is that if I tell her that she looks good, she knows I mean it, right? I'm not muddying up the water. And if I have to say something, I mean, it's not like the number of times that I've told her that I'm not happy with the way she's presenting it, like it's virtually never happens. She actually has extremely good taste. And so it's just an example. But if you're forced into a situation where you have to tell a white lie, there's snakes somewhere that you haven't dealt with.